I see in the comment thread of every one of my videos, commenters claiming that Ashkenazi Jews are descended from converted Turkic Khazars. I thought it would be worthwhile to address this myth. The story of the Jewish Khazars begins with the 10th century Khazar correspondence. An Andalusian Jewish statesman, Hasdai ibn Shaprut, sent a letter to King Joseph of the Khazars. In his reply, Joseph recounts how a ruler generations earlier had summoned Jewish, Christian, and Muslim scholars to his court before deciding to adopt Judaism, along with his servants, attendants, and all his people. Most scholars accept the letter as an authentic 10th century document. 10th century Arabic chroniclers such as Ibn Fadlan describe Atil, the Khazar capital, as a city of many faiths, which is in line with King Joseph's description. Al-Masudi wrote, "The laws of the Khazar capital decree 7 judges, 2 for the Muslims, 2 who judge in accordance with the Torah, for the Khazars, 2 who rule in accordance with the Gospels, for the Christians among them, and 1 for the Sakaliba and Russians and other idolaters." He also reports that Muslims dominated Khazar politics through the Al-Arisiya, the ruler's Muslim Praetorian Guard. Al-Istakri and Ibn Hawqal emphasized the size of the Muslim community. More than 10,000 people with around 30 mosques. Ibn Hawqal wrote that Muslims form the majority of the Khazar capital's urban population, alongside Christians, Jews, and idolaters. This religious diversity may reflect a deliberate political strategy. The adoption of Judaism by the court could have been a choice to maintain neutrality between the Christian Byzantine Empire and the Islamic Caliphate. In 965 CE, 10 years after King Joseph wrote his letter, Sviatoslav, the Grand Prince of Kiev, sacked Atil. By the beginning of the 11th century, Atil, along with the Khazari Jews, disappeared from history. There were Jewish communities in Crimea who became Turkic speakers, but they were diaspora Jews who traced their roots to Byzantium and the Middle East. Judah Halevi, one of the great Hebrew poets of the 12th century Islamic Spain, wrote the Kuzari, a celebrated apologetic dialogue defending Judaism. He used the disputation of scholars before the Khazar king as the stage set for his arguments. Translated from Arabic into Hebrew, it was studied for centuries by Jewish scholars, keeping the history of the Jewish Khazars alive. That would have been the end of our story if it had not been for Abraham Polak, a 20th century Jewish historian living in the Palestinian Mandate. In 1943, Polak published Khazaria, History of a Jewish Kingdom in Europe, claiming the Khazars were the demographic foundation of Eastern European Jewry. The book was well received by the Jewish public, who seemed to find inspiration in the tale recounted in King Joseph's letter of Jewish conquerors driving the Bulgars from their homeland and settling in it. Driving the Bulgars from their homeland and settling in it. The city of Tel Aviv even awarded Polak the Bialik Prize for Jewish thought. Polak's thesis, however, would soon be thoroughly discredited by the work of multiple scholars. Douglas Dunlop, an Arabist at the University of Glasgow, published The History of the Jewish Khazars in 1954. He carefully went through all the Arabic sources on the Khazars, translating them and setting them in context. He found that the Judaism of the Khazar kings and their circle coexisted with older pagan customs and didn't spread widely. He wrote, "The Judaism of the kings and their circle existed side by side with institutions deriving from the heathen past. And evidently, the Judaism of the Khakan did not lead him to uproot old customs to which the populace was attached." On the question of Ashkenazi origins, he concluded, "To speak of the Jews of Eastern Europe as descendants of the Khazars would be to go much beyond what our imperfect records allow." Peter Golden, a specialist in the history and languages of the Turkic steppe peoples, agreed that the Khazar conversion was real but limited. He surmised that any Judaized Khazars who may have joined the Slavic-speaking Jewish communities of the Kievan Rus were soon assimilated and overwhelmed by the far larger numbers of Ashkenazi Jews, arriving later from Central Europe. The Khazars were at best a footnote to, not a foundation of Ashkenazi Jewry. More recently, Boris Zhivkov, a Bulgarian historian at San Oteron Clement Ohrid University in Sofia, re-examined the Khazars in his book Khazaria in the 9th and 10th centuries in 2015. His conclusions echo earlier scholars. As he writes, Judaism was the religion practiced by the Khazar ruling dynasty and possibly by quite a significant part of the nobility. The majority of the population, however, continued to adhere to its pagan beliefs. Zhivkov also notes that this was not unique to the Khazars. The ruling family's change of religion is not uncommon for the steppe empires contemporary to Khazaria. A very similar example is the Caucasian state, where the nobility, or rather a small part of it, together with the ruler, converted to Manichaeism around 765 AD, while the majority of the population remained pagan. Like Dunlop and Golden before him, Zhivkov situates the Khazar conversion as an elite phenomenon, real but limited, leaving little trace on the broader population. This would explain the complete lack of archaeological evidence of Jewish practice in any of the Khazar archaeological sites. It had even been suggested by proponents of the Khazar origin story that Yiddish was born in Crimea. Linguists have shown this to have absolutely no basis, since Yiddish is demonstrably a Germanic language with Hebrew and Slavic additions, and no trace of Turkic influence. In 1976, Arthur Koestler's bestseller, The 13th Tribe, repackaged Polak's thesis for a mass audience. Koestler transformed a discredited academic theory into a popular origin myth, which would be amplified 1,000-fold in the age of social media. The final word on this subject goes to the geneticists at Tel Aviv University, the Weizmann Institute of Science, Harvard Medical School, and the Max Planck Institute for the Science of Human History in their study, The Genomic History of the Bronze Age Southern Levant. The researchers analyzed the DNA of 73 ancient individuals from Bronze Age Canaanite sites, comparing them to modern Jewish and Palestinian populations. Looking at the chart, you can see that Ashkenazi Jews share the same Levantine Canaanite ancestry as Sephardic and Mizrahi Jews, Palestinian Christians, and Muslims. All of these groups share a common origin in what is today Israel and Palestine. The Ashkenazim do have a substantial European admixture from 2,000 years in Europe, but what you don't find is any sign of Turkic ancestry, no significant Central Asian Turkic admixture. This should put to rest persistent myths about the origins and identity of both Ashkenazi Jews and Palestinian Arabs. Thanks for watching. Please hit the like and subscribe buttons if you would like to see more content like this.